Hello and welcome to Hey Clarity. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we are opening the Akashic Records on generational trauma. This is G Week of the Alphabet Superset, and there will be more information about that in the description box below. The questions that we're going to ask on generational trauma: 1, what's the opening message or opening visual? 2, what is generational trauma? 3, how do we experience it individually and collectively? 4, how can we release and clear it? 5, what is at the root of all generational trauma? And 6, what's the most important message we need to know? So I said the opening prayer prior to hitting record. So we're in the Akashic Records of generational trauma now. So starting with the opening message and opening visual. They're showing like someone's arm, like the skin of someone's arm, and like a needle and thread, and this thread being like sewn into someone's arm, right? So it's like, it's not who you are, but it's something that's been dug in and out of, they're saying like your skin. And they're saying your soul connections, generations, ancestors. They're kind of saying like all types of ancestors, all types of generations. So it's this thread weaving in and out, like being stitched onto our skin, right? So they're showing like the importance of the skin being a layer of us. It's a more surface layer, but I'm getting that it depends on how deep that needle pierced through the skin and then coming back out. And it's something about the thread like showing itself, and then this like a short stitch, and then the needle going back in. Like, how deep did the needle go? And they're saying how old are the patterns and the belief systems and the behaviors. So the depth of how deep the needle goes into the skin. So it could be like a more like surface level trauma, painful, still painful. But then there's like the deeper levels is like, does it go deeper into like the tissues and the muscles and the organs? Like, how deep does it go? And they're saying not necessarily, like it doesn't usually go that deep. And there's something about like, that's the point, is like, it tends to be a more surface level experience. They're kind of like on our sleeves, almost like heart on your sleeve. Like sometimes we wear our traumas on our sleeves. Like, and they're saying like unconsciously, subconsciously, consciously, like many levels of how we might be wearing these like stitches that have been stitched into our skin. So that's the opening message, opening visual. And then in like, what is generational trauma? Let's see, maybe that was answering it specifically. What is generational trauma? They're saying wounds, experiences of the past, storytelling of the past, passed down, telling stories, feelings, emotions. They're saying like scares, fears, terrible things, terrible experiences tend to be shared through storytelling. And they're like showing when like, you know, a parent or a grandparent is telling a story of the past, something historical in the family to like a young child. And they're kind of saying like, why? Question mark. They're saying, why are you passing it on? They're saying, like terrible things, like let it be the end. They're just saying, why? Why the passing on? Why the passing on of it? Why telling these stories? And they're kind of saying like you're inciting fear, like you're instilling fear in the next generation and future generations if you keep passing on these stories. They're saying they're not necessarily like true. They're not necessarily untrue, but they're saying, but why does it matter today? How is it relevant today to keep those stories alive? The storytellers alive. They're kind of saying like, if we were to pass on the wins, like the victories and the glory of like hard times and hard experiences, if parents and grandparents were to tell us the historical family, they're kind of saying like secrets and stories that are like joyous and joyful, and they're saying victorious, healthy, helpful, like those stories are like, they're kind of saying like worth passing on. It's worth passing that on for like hope and faith. But they're saying that like treacherous, dangerous, like old patterns and behaviors, like they don't need to keep living on. Like those stories don't have to keep being told. And sometimes they're saying like, if there was like a hard experience or like a horrible death, they're saying, why are you passing it on? Like it ended in like a terrible way. I'm getting like, there needs to be like, if you're passing on a horrible experience or telling the story of a horrible experience, let there be like a light at the end of the tunnel. It's like this horrible thing happened, but then what? Like, but then what? Like, did something amazing happen after that horrible thing happened? Because it's like, let the amazing part be the focus. And it's almost like maybe you don't give as much detail about the horrible thing. Like maybe it's like so-and-so died without like the details of like who, what, where, when. Because they're saying like that incites so much fear, the who, what, where, when, because then it's like, this thing happened between these people. So it's like in my mind that those people like hurtful, bad, like there's something about that. And just, they're saying like, be responsible with your storytelling. And like, they're saying, give it a purpose. Don't just be telling these like dreadful, horrible, terrible stories without any purpose, like just to tell them. They're kind of saying like the end, and they're showing like explosion and like violence and like war. And they're just like, but things kept going. And so like, how did they keep going? And how did you get to hear, like, what's the victory of like that horrible ending and like where you are today? Like, what's the journey? What's the victorious journey away from that, through that, beyond that? They're kind of saying like a lot of this like generational trauma is from like storytellers who are just like doom and gloom and bad, and like they're saying like still fear. They just instill fear and like sickness and like repetition of patterns and repetitive patterns. Okay, how do we experience generational trauma? Individually and collectively. So how do we experience generational trauma individually? They're saying carrying weight, carrying the baggage of like past people, taking on the responsibility of like passed on loved ones and dead loved ones and older generations, like the hard stuff that they went through, us then taking responsibility for their heavy, hard stuff, their baggage, like taking their baggage with us. They're saying like trying to like prove some sort of point. And it shows up in us in like anxiety and depression. When we like are carrying this baggage and we like can't handle it. We can't handle it. Because they're saying it's yours if you want it to be. Like if you claim it as yours, then it's yours. But if you allow it to be theirs, the older generations, the previous past generations, and not let it be yours, they're saying like taking control of like your generation, of like this thing happened in the past in older generations, but like They're saying, I am definitely not going to be like here for that. They're saying like, I'm not going to be here for that. I'm not going to carry the baggage. I'm not going to hold the baggage. And it's like this idea of like the goal of like proving a better life for the next generations. Like, they're saying like the willpower to create the world to be better for like next generations. But part of that is putting down the baggage, like not putting that responsibility of older generations, of generational trauma, not putting that baggage on current, next, future generations. They're just saying like holding and carrying all this baggage, all these old patterns and old behaviors, it's not necessarily like going to help anything to keep carrying it. So they're kind of like, drop it, exclamation point. Drop their baggage. Like their baggage is not yours, but it's yours if you want it to be. Like you want to take on that baggage, then that's on you. Like they're saying it's responsible for you to be focused on next generations, future generations. Like take responsibility in current events to clear the generational trauma for the next generations, for the future generations. They're saying like enough is enough. Stop. Like take action. Like do the things to like not let those things happen again. Not sharing those stories. Like not passing on that storytelling unless you give it a purpose of like hope and faith and curiosity and creativity and adaptability and resilience and moving forward. Like what's the good part? And maybe they're saying like dull the moments or like dim down the details of like the most horrific experiences, because it's not helpful to pass that information on and keep inciting and instilling fear in current, future, and next generations. So how do we experience it individually and collectively? Well, I said individually, they said like anxiety, depression, carrying weight, carrying baggage. And then collectively, they're saying chaos, chaotic events, environments, wars, violence, sickness. How do we experience generational trauma collectively? They're just saying chaotic events, like old generations, old belief systems. They're saying like not dying. I'm getting like not dying for it. They're like, why? Like, why are you so demanding of like old belief systems, of older belief systems? Why are you so demanding of it? Like, why are you so demanding? Like, why are you demanding the repetition of these generational traumas? Like, why are you wanting to keep holding on to this stuff? They're saying it's not good for you to carry old, heavy baggage. They're saying like, leave it. Like, leave it a lighter way. Like, let it be a lighter way. Figure out a way to be lighter, to drop the bags, to drop the baggage, to not carry it with you, to not bring those stories with you. They're like, the end is a new beginning. So let the stuff that's ended be over before it becomes, they're saying like, this, we're recreating the story. Like we're recreating it and recreating it and recreating it. And they're saying karma, karmic cycles, repetitive cycles. What you create, you will recreate until you create something new. So why do you keep creating the end is what they're saying. Why do you keep creating the end? Why does everyone want the end? They're saying be responsible in a way where you create a new beginning. Like, where's the new beginning is what they're saying. Why is it always the end? How about what's the new beginning? They're like, ... a new beginning, ... There's before and there's after. There's always after. They're saying it's the ending. It's the ending of generational trauma for a new beginning. for a new way of being. They're like, how about it? How about it? How about that? How can we release and clear generational trauma? They're saying close chapters, like close the doors, close the chapters. If you recognize repetition of a story or belief system of some horrible experience, I'm getting like it's had its voice passing down generations. It's had its experience, still experiencing it. And so they're like, kind of clear it in you, understand it in you, let it go in you. And in you, like, they're kind of saying, like, if you want to take responsibility for like cutting this generational trauma, cutting it off, part of that is like recognizing what it is, where did it come from, what's the story? And they're kind of saying, and never telling it again. Like, let the story die with you. Don't pass on that story. Don't pass on that behavior pattern. Like, do something different. There's something that keeps happening, then be creative and do something different. And they're like, it's uncomfortable, it's different, it's new. It might feel weird, it might feel strange. It might be isolating at times to kind of cut off something, to be like, this is the end, like it dies with me. But they're like, give it the new beginning. So like, you hear this horrific story, this horrible experience that has been through the generations of your family. Don't tell the story again, but also tell the new story. What's the new beginning? How has it evolved? You don't have to keep repeating the story. You don't have to keep repeating the pattern. Do something different. Create something else. Don't recreate that. Create something else. Don't recreate the old patterns, the old behaviors, the old traumas, the horrible experience, the terrible experiences. Like, don't recreate those. Create something new. We don't want to recreate. We want to create something new. We want to create a new beginning. What's the new beginning? They're like, whatever these stories are that are like in your family, your lineage, what's the story that you were told? Like, what are some of the stories that you were told about the horrible things that your, older generations in your family have gone through? Write them down. And then give them peace. Like, give them peace. It's kind of like they're showing like rest in peace, like RIP. They're showing like a little gravestone that says RIP. Like, put the story to bed and say, from here on out, this new beginning is going to be like this. We're going to change that. It's going to evolve and grow and learn something else, learn something new. We're going to do something different. And just by like setting that intention to be like, no more of these stories, no more of this, just by setting that intention, like they're saying it's in motion. They're saying emotions, feelings, like your emotions and your feelings change if you like give it the hope, right? Give it the faith, give it the new beginning that like it deserves. Like, I'm getting like our ancestors and like the generational trauma. I'm getting like everyone's tired. Like, we're exhausted. Excuse me. Yeah, like that's a really big thing. Everyone's tired. Like, we're exhausted with this stuff. They're saying like, don't give it a voice. Shut it down. Shut it up. End the story. Unless the story has some hopeful, victorious, like resilient, like overcoming of something, like share that part. But don't share the stuff that's so like grim. No hopelessness is what they're saying. A new beginning. Focus on a new beginning. Anything else about how we can release and clear it? They're saying like, no families are perfect. Not a single one. Do not forget that. I'm getting some of them may have more recent generational trauma than others. Like, some have maybe had previous generational trauma that's worked its way through and things have cleaned and cleared up a lot more. And so they're calling it privilege. Like, things look like privilege, but they're like way, way back, like rough times for them too. So it's kind of, they're saying like everyone has it. Like everyone has it. It's in everyone. Some people may just have a little more distance from it than others. Some of us might be closer to it than others. But then they're also like, right now, you're making the next generational trauma. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? They're kind of like every single day is a chance to not do it, is to do something different, is to tell a different story. And they're like, working so hard to like end becoming something new and giving this new beginning to the next generations. And then they're kind of like the freshest experiences of pain and suffering recreate more next level generational trauma. So we're in this repetition, this like cycle. And they're saying wars, violence, belief systems, old belief systems. They're showing someone like stomping on the ground and just like how tired and exhausted we are. I'm getting like in other worlds, like in all worlds, like everyone's really tired and exhausted with these stories. We're really sick of it. And it's like, recreate it, create something new. Like every time we have a chance to create something new, they're kind of like something else decides they want to recreate it again. Someone's generational trauma wants to rear its ugly demon head and recreate it some more. So, what is at the root of all generational trauma? They're saying blood. What is at the root of all generational trauma? Blood, dying, violence, wars, pain, suffering, fear, shame, guilt, pain and suffering. What is at the root of all generational trauma? This deep gash, like these deep gashes, these open wounds that like, wow, they're really getting my throat chakra today. They're saying like voice, voiceless, listen, silence, observe, give peace, create peace, give grace, create grace, give care, give kindness, give compassion, give love for the hurt. All possibilities are on the table. All possibilities are on the table. So this deep gash is at the root. This wound, this gash that never gets a chance to heal. It never gets a chance to heal. So it's just like this deep open wound that goes so deep, like almost, I'm getting it goes to the bone. Like there's a gash in my arm and it goes to the bone. And now they're showing like sutras. And they're showing like, instead of this like thread going surface level at the top of the skin, they're like, maybe instead of kind of like stitching and recreating this generational trauma, they're like, can you use like medical thread, whatever they use, and they're just like, can you stitch up the gash? Like instead of doing this like surface level, like allowing it to go underneath, come back up, goes underneath, it comes, okay, it like goes under the surface and it comes back up a little bit, and it goes under the surface and it comes back up a little bit. And they're like, can you just stitch the gash already? Can you stop just like letting it come up and hiding it and burying it, letting it come up and burying it? They're like, just close the gash, close the wound, like clean it out, keep it from getting infected, and then let it heal, like close it up. They're like, close the chapter, the end. What's the most important message we need to know about generational trauma? What's the most important message we need to know about generational trauma? It's a big task. It's a big responsibility. And they're saying, like, for it's worth it. Like, take on responsibility for your generational trauma, not carrying it. They're saying, like, from a place of like self-awareness of like, oh, I know this comes from generations in my family. It's kind of like the self-awareness of just like, oh, this thing that I do has been in my family for a while. Okay. And so it's a big task, it's a big ask, and it's a big responsibility to be the, like, they're saying the deal breakers. Like, stop making that deal. Like, stop believing in that curse. You know, don't give it the power that it has had. And it's kind of like the longer that the stories have been told, like the louder the voices are, the louder the reverberation of the experience has been, because it's just like, I'm getting like echoes of the past, like it's echoing from the past. It's so loud. We just keep like passing on the stories. And so the most important message is close the chapter, the end, for a new beginning, for a new beginning. Don't recreate generational trauma, create something new for a new beginning. All possibilities are on the table. Stop focusing on the past. Stop focusing on old belief systems. Stop believing in them altogether, they're saying. Like, you don't have to believe in them at all. Like, you can choose to believe something different if it's not working anymore. Like, if it's like, if it's not working for me, if it's not working for you, if it's not working for us, if it's not working for the world, why are you believing it? Why are you allowing this to keep living? Why are you making it this living, breathing thing? Anything else? They're just saying close chapter, the end, for a new beginning. And they're kind of like, please this time, like, do whatever it takes to minimize next generational trauma. And they're kind of like, create something new, create a new beginning. Think differently than what you've been taught, than what you learned from the past. A new something is ahead if you create it and if you believe in it. So they're saying, like, believe in that, please. And thank you. Okay. So that was the Akashic Records on generational trauma. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have anything you want to share from listening to that, you can feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you next week.